So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Now, love is my decision. Love is your 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 decision. That's our focus for this morning as we bring our theme of applying the art and science of spiritual living in the context of your current challenges and issues. And I've chosen the idea of love being our decision as a way to conclude our month of practicing the art and science of our teachings. Because many, many times our challenges have to do with relationships, don't they? Our human relationships are really where the rubber meets the road. If we're not motivated by love, if we don't come from love, then all of our other spiritual work will fall just a bit short of our goals. So today we talk about making the decision to love because, as Charles Fillmore, who is the founder of Unity, said in his talks on truth, the one who has made union with divine love through his inner consciousness, who lets it pour its healing currents into his soul and his body, is fortunate beyond all description. Love is, of course, a choice. As we make ourselves receptive to love, look for love in every way and choose love, love points the way. Love points the way. And then, and this is the exciting part, we start with love and then law. Law moves into action to create greater love in relationships, greater love in our work, greater love in life. Today our mission is to choose love. To choose love, to let it lead the way to a life that is lived fully. I want to explore three areas this morning. I want to talk about divine love, I want to talk about tough love, and I want to talk about sacred love. So we're going to start with divine love, and this is our grounding point. And I love, pun intended, these words from Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind. He writes, "Love is the central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. It is written that God is love, and that we are his expressed likeness, the image of the eternal being. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human." And despite what we may have learned in our earlier religious upbringings, I want you to know that God's love for us is completely, totally, 100% unconditional. Unconditional love. Think about just for a moment what that means. No strings attached, no requirements. We don't have to be a certain way. We don't have to earn anything to earn it. We don't have to behave ourselves to receive it. God's love is freely given. It simply washes over you, through you, and in you. Charles Fillmore goes on to say, "We may talk about the wisdom of God, but the love of God must be felt in the heart. It cannot be described, and the one who has not felt it can have no concept of it from the descriptions of others. But the more we talk about love, the stronger it grows in the consciousness. And if we persist in thinking loving thoughts and speaking loving words, we are sure to bring into our experience the feeling of that great love that is beyond description, the very love of God." So I want to give you the opportunity to feel the love of God in an illustration. Now, it's a story about a human experience, but it gets pretty darn close to the feeling of that great love that is beyond description, which is the very love of God. And it goes like this. His name was John. He has wild hair. He wears a t-shirt with holes in it. My dad would call it, he's going to Sunday shirt because it's holy, right? It's kind of, he wears dirty jeans and he doesn't wear any shoes. And this was literally his wardrobe for his entire 4 years of college. He's a brilliant student. And more than that, he's just a little eccentric. But across the street from the campus is a very conservative church. Its congregants are older, they're well-dressed, they're moneyed. They might even be judged to be a little on the stuffy side, You know what I'm saying there? One day, John decided to go to church. As usual, he's running late, and when he walks in with no shoes, dirty jeans, and his holy t-shirt and wild hair, the service has already started. Not being shy and feeling pretty comfortable with himself wherever he goes, John starts down the aisle looking for a seat. Well, the church is completely packed, and he can't find any place to sit. And by now, people are beginning to shift in their seats, and they're looking just a little uncomfortable, but no one says anything. John gets closer and closer to the pulpit, and when he realizes that there are no seats, he just sits right down on the carpet. Just comes, sits down right on the carpet. And this might have been acceptable behavior at maybe a college fellowship, right? Something like this has never happened at this church before. By now, the people are really uptight, and the tension in the air is thick. And about this time, the minister realizes that from way at the back of the church, a deacon is slowly making his way towards John. Now, the deacon is in his 80s, and he's very dignified, in his suit, and he's got his gold pocket watch and everything. And he walks with a cane as he starts walking to the young boy. And everyone is saying to themselves, you can't blame him for what he's about to do. That young bum really doesn't belong here. He's disrupting our entire service. It takes a long time, or it seems like a long time, for the deacon to reach John. The church is utterly silent, except for the clicking of the man's cane as he goes down the aisle. All of the eyes are focused on him. You can't even hear anyone breathing. The people are thinking, the minister can't even preach the sermon until the deacon does what he has to do. And now the deacon reaches John. To everyone's surprise, he drops the cane on the floor, and with great difficulty and very slowly, he lowers himself and sits down next to John, greeting him with a warm smile and a handshake. Everyone chokes up with emotion. When the minister gains control, he says, "What I am about to preach, you will never remember. What you have just seen, you will never forget." A perfect illustration of God's love for you. You may feel misplaced or a misfit, but God doesn't care. You are completely and totally loved. So, just breathe in the sweet feeling in this room right now. And we didn't even have to actually experience or have that experience, did we? We just heard about it. But it really opened our hearts, didn't it? Let's take that open-hearted place and bring it to what I'm going to call tough love. And it isn't what you might think. Tough love. I had a calendar many years ago that had quotes on it each day. I'm sure many of you have calendars like that. And you could tear them off. And this is one that I saved because it always stayed with me. It says, when we practice loving what is near, we get off of the level of mushy sentimentality or abstract philosophy and sink into the soulful difficulty of the actuality. Okay, I'm going to repeat that because it's a mouthful. When we practice loving what is near, we get off the level of mushy sentimentality or abstract philosophy and sink into the soulful difficulty of the actuality. In other words, loving what is right in front of us is sometimes tough. It's sometimes tough. And that, it is highly and holy work when we can do this. High and holy work. A wise spiritual leader once said that human relations are the intersection between what we learn spiritually and how we show up in the world. It's where we do our human homework. But isn't that what we're here to experience? Ask yourself, am I willing to meet this, embrace this, and love it through to the other side? And boy, doing that is an art and a science, isn't it? Seeing it through to the other side. The Dalai Lama once said that we all have friends, those people in our lives who are easy to love, easy to forgive. And then he said we have our sacred friends, those who call us to greatness, but who are very difficult to deal with. It's through our relationships with our sacred friends that we activate our own evolution. Van Jones, founder of the American Dream Movement and the author of The Green Collar Economy, once wrote, "When it's harder to love, love harder. Love harder." So here are just a few ideas for loving someone even when it's tough. When you look into their eyes, look for the good. Look for the good. Look for what they do right. It's so easy to get caught up in when people are what we judge as not being right. Ask yourself, what am I thinking about this person? Can I change my thoughts about this person and start thinking about what there is to love about him or her? Pray for their highest and best, not just for them to change to meet your needs. What is highest and best for them? Offer them a loving gesture. These are selfless acts. They all mirror the love of the divine for us because they are unconditional. They are unconditional. You're not asking for anything in return. And the interesting thing is that often when someone receives this kind of love, they do change. They do change. In his work, Real Love by Greg Bear, has anyone read Real Love by Greg Bear? He spoke at a seminar a few years back, and his books are pretty powerful. He says that real love melts monsters. Real love melts monsters. Let me give you an example of an illustration. An Amish man and his son were visiting a large mall. It was the first time either had been in such a place, and they gazed around at the bright lights and the vivid displays with a mixture of awe and just a little bit of distaste, right? They came upon a wall with 2 silver doors. And having never seen an elevator before, the father and son watched as an elderly woman in a wheelchair pushed the button and the doors opened, and she wheeled herself inside into the small room behind the doors, and the doors closed. And they watched the lights above the elevator go up 1, 2, and 3, and then back down to 1, and the doors opened, and out came a beautiful 25-year-old woman who smiled at the man and his son as she passed by. And the Amish man scratched his beard for a moment, and he turned to his son and he said, "Adam, run home and get your mother." I've been often asked, how do you love others when they do not appear to love themselves? How do you love others when it's evident that they don't love themselves? For example, maybe they have an issue with drugs or alcohol, or they don't take responsibility for themselves and they blame you or someone else. It's always somebody else's fault for their challenges. What's the right action to take? How do you apply love in those tough situations? Of course, our basic tenet in religious science is teaching self-responsibility. We're each responsible for what we think, what we choose. We must set boundaries at times, and the only one person, can tell you where your boundaries are, and that's you. So at this time, you would tap into your inner guidance and into that system within you through prayer, through active listening, and then you'll know what action to take, and then trust what message you receive and act upon it. Act upon it. We always have those little voices telling us this would be a good thing to do. But how often do we act upon it? We have to trust and then act. So finally we come to number 3, which is sacred love. And so let's spend a few minutes on talking about sacred love, which is romantic relationships. Those relationships can certainly be places where we can do our human homework, right? A lot of our human homework. 3 quick ideas that can serve us and support you and me in our current relationships, or one that you desire to draw into your life, are these. 1, individual wholeness, relationship with God. The romantic notion of love says that if we can find the perfect person for us, then we will be whole and complete. We will find that person, we will fall in love, and we will live happily ever after. But romantic love has a spiritual basis. And I think we tend to forget that sometimes. There's a craving within each of us for union, conscious union with God, with our source. We know that love is the power that creates that union, and our soul will not rest until we rest in that oneness. But romantic love often sidetracks us. Instead of realizing the divine love within ourselves, we project it onto another person, and that other can never come up to the idealized standards of our love. So herein lies our task. We must realize that the love is the love of God within us and not the romantic idea of falling in love with another person. Then we must embrace this love of God, and when we do, we will become a whole person. Our craving will be over because we won't be missing anything. We will begin as a whole person. We must come as a whole person into the relationship, and then a sacred partnership is possible. So the second part is roles. It's time we all understand that a sacred partnership involves a cosmic couple, to use a term that was coined by Barbara Marx Hubbard. And she says that a cosmic couple is one that moves away from gender stereotypes and is in fluid movement depending on the needs at the time. Our roles in a cosmic coupleship are to ensure that our household is taken care of, children raised, house clean, meals cooked, laundry done, cars maintained, lawn cared for, money earned, bills paid, etc., etc. It's no one's job to do this. It's our job as a partnership to do this. We must sort out who is best suited at any given time. And this will change and shift over time. It's not a heartbreaking thing I have to explain to my father, who was very sad at 90 and who should be doing what roles. But I think we've learned and evolved quite a bit. There's not an equal sharing of responsibility, but rather equal sharing, meaning overall there is a balance. Yet at times it will be out of balance, with one partner taking on more of the load than the other. So, knowing this, a couple was having an argument over who should make the coffee in the morning. He insisted that it was the woman's job. She said, "You are up earlier than I am, you should make it." This argument went on and on and on. They simply could not resolve it, so they went to their minister about it. I often deal with issues like this. The minister wasn't sure on this question, but he knew that every answer was provided in the Bible. So he told the couple to come back in a week and he would have time to research it. A week later, they returned at the appointed time, both on edge because neither had had any coffee. I guess they didn't hear about Starbucks, right? Okay. Well, he said, "Well, young man, I'm afraid that the scripture is clear on this one. It is your job." "What? Where does it say that?" he said in disbelief. He says, "Right here," as he pointed to the book of Hebrews.
Hebrews.
Sorry. Oh, that is not a cosmic couple model, but okay. That brings us. I know. That brings us. So sorry. Until I was in a really happy mood writing this talk. That brings us to appreciation. Appreciation in a relationship is a very, very powerful way to tangibly show your love. Who's done the 5 love languages test? Has anybody done the 5 love languages? Okay. Appreciation and words of affirmation are one of the love languages. I highly, you can go on to 5lovelanguages.com and take it, and they'll send you an email, tell you what your love language is, and it's just a powerful tool. But appreciation prevents you from taking the other partner for granted. You may have heard the story of the man who exclaimed to his wife that he had discovered that he had magic drawers in his dresser. She asked him what he meant, and he said that every morning he opened the drawer and magically there were clean socks and t-shirts just magically there for him to use every single day. It was a miracle. And there's another story that about a man who would ask his wife, to make him some toast. And she'd think, "Why am I making him some toast? He knows the toaster, he can make himself some toast." But when she made him toast or made him some soup, or even went out and bought him something from the fast food store, he would exclaim, "This is love on a plate. This is love in a bowl. Love in a bag." He was so appreciative for her effort to do something so small like that. So it's amazing how being appreciative has such magic in relationships. And that was his way of saying that he appreciated his wife taking care of the laundry. So Rich and I try to be mindful of all that each other does for our everyday chores, such as laundry, cooking dinner, doing the dishes. And because I have offered an illustration to summarize each of the other forms of love this morning, divine love and tough love, here is one for sacred love. It's written by that prolific author, Anonymous, and it goes like this. It was a busy morning at the clinic, and at approximately 8:30 a.m., an elderly gentleman arrived to have stitches removed from his thumb. He stated that he was in a hurry, that he had an appointment at 9 a.m. I took his vital signs and had him take a seat, knowing it would be over an hour before a doctor would be able to see him. I saw him looking at his watch and decided that since I was not busy with another patient at this moment, I would evaluate his wound. On exam, it was so well healed, so I talked to one of the doctors and got what was needed and removed the sutures and redressed his wound. While taking care of his wound, we began to talk. I asked him if he had another doctor's appointment that morning, and he said he was in such a hurry. The gentleman told me no, that he needed to go to the nursing home to eat breakfast with his wife. I then inquired as to her health. He told me that she had been there a while and that she had Alzheimer's disease. As we talked and I finished dressing his wound, I asked if she would be worried that he was a bit late. He replied that no. She no longer knew who he was and that she had not recognized him in 5 years now. I was surprised and asked him, "And you still go there every morning even though she doesn't know who you are?" He smiled as he patted my hand and said, "She doesn't know who I am, but I still know who she is." I had to hold back tears as he left and had goosebumps on my arms as I thought, that is the kind of love I want in my life. True love is neither physical nor romantic. True love is an acceptance of all that is, has been, will be, and will not be. The story takes us back full circle to God's love for us, for our love for one another, and an acceptance of all that we are, all that we have been, all that we will be, and all that we will not be. Teilhard de Chardin, the French monk and 19th century mystic, once wrote, "The day will come when, after harnessing the ether, the winds, the tides, the gravitation, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And on that day, for the second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire." What if we made the decision to make that day today? And so it is.